Are we ready to begin?
Hi.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Ference.
I'm Deidre,
I run the projects lab at Marin Primary and Middle School.
and I am the humanities teacher for 6th and 7th grade this year.
Right. We had a opportunity this year to collaborate on a project that was very popular before the pandemic, and Deidre brought it back this year, and so it was really exciting to do it again. Why don't you tell them a little bit about the project?
Well, my 7th grade class this year is the most fascinating group of kids because this project was built for them. When you tell a group of 7th grade imaginative kids that they're going to build a trebuchet to launch 50, 60 feet, hopefully, that's all you need to say, and you've got the engagement, you've got the buy-in.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky because I got to work with Ference, and I knew that Ference had this projects lab, although I've never collaborated with him before. He's got this projects lab that my students could go into and actually do this for real, a real world design and collaboration and build.
Project-based learning.
Project-based learning, yeah, with some real live results and an audience.
It was exciting for me because I don't teach the 7th graders regularly, but I've had almost all of the students for a good portion of their career here at Marin Primary. And so for me, I could see that excitement as soon as they came in the room and they started looking around at like, okay, I need a hammer, I need the wood, where's the stuff that I can use? And then I was also very happy to see the techniques that we've been learning since kindergarten come into play as they dove in and quickly started to assemble their trebuchets and catapults.
Yeah, Ference, I have to say that was the thing I was most just enthralled with. How they came in, how they knew what to do, how they knew where the tools were that they needed to use. I'd never been in here before with you, and this wasn't like a kindergarten class or a 2nd grade class. This was a 7th grade class that had learned those skills over and over again, and now we're applying them in a much more complicated and independent way. It was really incredible to see.
There was a lot of enthusiasm. It had to be tempered a little bit, like, yes, we do need to make plans first, and we do need to talk about materials, and you can't just start throwing stuff together. It has to work. That's part of the functionality and the engineering.
There was a lot of walking around with the drills like this. So, Ference, I'm curious, what do you think made this project so successful?
Again, it was the enthusiasm, but it was also, the project came from so many different places. Like, they'd already made castles, and you guys had already talked about global medieval history, and this was kind of like the culmination of that. And what else were you talking about with regards to like the history?
One thing I thought was really amazing was we studied feudalism, we studied medieval times in Europe, and then we studied medieval times in Japan, and we touched a little bit on medieval times in China. And then I presented this project. This was the 2nd collaboration, project-based learning, and I said, hey, you're going to build a catapult or a trebuchet, and the kids were like, there weren't catapults in medieval times. It was so, for me, it was such a wonderful moment because their understanding and their knowledge superseded my own, and they were able to share that with me. I thought that was amazing.
But
it was still an option, though.
Okay, but the thought of launching a projectile 50 to 60 feet was more important than the history of the project.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, so this is a big collaboration. It's a collaboration between you and me, but the students also had to collaborate as well.
Yes. So for this project, they were on a different team than they were when they built their castle. So this is a whole different team. And it started right away doing some of the same skills that we did with the castle. They had to research trebuchets and catapults, understand what the difference was. Then they had to decide as a team, are they going to build a catapult or are they going to build a trebuchet? We had some parameters. You and I had discussed beforehand, hey, we're not going to have like 3-foot catapults coming in on cranes. We're just going to keep it simple. And so they had some parameters with what they had to work with. And then with their research, they were able to make a pretty good decision on which one they could build in the time that they had. And we started providing them 4 weeks, and we moved to 5 weeks. We ended
Right.
up needing an extra week.
Well, that was important for us as collaborators to learn, because we didn't really know when we went into this project exactly what they would need either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we told them many times, hey, this is the beta version.
Yeah.
This is the beta version of this project. So then they had to design their catapult or their trebuchet. And that meant that they could do more research online, find out what worked, what were the styles, what were the designs that other people had used, watched videos. And then they had to do a scale drawing, which was, again, a spiral scale from what they had done in math with Jen. And then they did it for the castle, and now they were doing that proportion and ratio and scale drawing again on the trebuchet project. So they had to build, they had to design and do a scale drawing of the launcher that they were going to build.
So what I love to hear about that is that they're learning something in one area, but they have to apply it in another place.
Yeah, and it really takes our curriculum and our content out of those silos, and it puts it in a real world context, like you were saying, but it also allows them to make connections between curriculum and between content. And this project was such an incredible example of that.
Yeah.
So in the end, So like what was driving them and what was pushing them was, of course, like the learning, but also the fact that there was going to be a competition
Right.
with prizes. And we had imagined that we would do an accuracy and a distance, like a raw distance, and then a ratio, like compared to how big the launcher is to how far it went.
Right.
We ended up paring it down for the competition because of time. And again, this is the beta version. And so we did ratio, proportion, how far did it go compared, and then we did gross distance, raw distance, I don't know if that term is right, and then we did design.
Right.
Yeah. So
it was exciting because we have the winners. Even though this one was very tiny, proportionally, the projectile went much farther because of its small stature. It was able to win, and I think that was really important for the kids to see. Here's the actual winner, which is pretty impressive. It's Trebuchet. Here's the sling and the weights, and they had to figure it all out so it worked smoothly. And I think it went about 70, launched something about 70 feet.
yeah.
So it was pretty impressive.
Another part that I really loved, on the day of the competition, we got the trebuchets out there, we got them all lined up, and it started to rain.
Well,
so it was
medieval.
yes, classic medieval Europe. This is what happens.
And also, it turned into a whole school event because as we had sent it out to school-wide, there was a lot of other classes out there, at least 5 other classes, and the buzz that I kept hearing was like, oh, I can't wait to get to 7th grade to build that. I think it's going to be another project that's going to come back year after year and something for students to look forward to.
Absolutely. The students are going to continue that collaboration, that real world problem solving, that real just relevant learning. And we're also going to get better. We can go from the beta version to the alpha version in doing a project like this. You know, Farron's, the last part of this project is the students wrote a how-to essay on how to build a trebuchet or a catapult.
Well, I noticed after every class, you always had time for them to take notes. And so that was building up to this.
Yeah. Then they kind of had their pre-write done for an essay.
Great.
Yeah. But what's really exciting about them, because I just did the first round of revision feedback, is how in some moments each essay dropped into what actually was happening in the projects lab. They're talking not just about doing this and then this. They're talking about measuring to this, measuring to that, and the last paragraph in their essay is all about problem solving. What came up that you didn't expect, and how did you solve that problem?
Yes.
So they're really practicing those critical thinking skills and reflection.
That all goes back to just the general philosophy about the projects lab, where it's not about learning how to build, it's learning about how to solve problems, and tools just being yet another tool that you can use to solve a problem. And if you have a facility with that, it gives you that extra bit of strength.
Yeah. You know, one of the, just you're reminding me of, through the building process, this is the winning trebuchet, and the other teams would notice what was working really well and then adopt that idea. And I thought, well, that's collaboration. You're not always hopefully you're not keeping your great ideas just for your team. Hopefully you're able to learn and grow within community, and that was definitely evident as you look at all the other trebuchets. They all have these triangular supports, and I think all of them have these braces on the side of the arm. So neat.
Very exciting. It's always nice to work with you, and this podcast as well.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.